Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And I pulled up a few older reports from OpenSignal, and I wanted to talk about availability. For some people, availability is of a network is the most important metric out of any of them, right? For some people, if the network is not available, then, what am I paying for? So, and this is just according to OpenSignal, their metrics, and how they do their testing. If we go by them, right, what you're seeing on screen right now is from January 2020. This is when Sprint was still around. And you guys can see from the availability, Verizon was the winner, T-Mobile second, AT&T third, and Sprint last. 4G availability, right? So I want to move a little bit forward to July 2022. And there, as you can see, AT&T number one, Verizon two, and T-Mobile third. All right, this is already almost about a little over 2 years post-merger, Sprint and T-Mobile merger. And AT&T went from third place, 92.9, to 99.3. They went from third to first. So you can make the argument, and this is actually the one as of January of 2025. There you can see again, AT&T first, 99.5, Verizon second, 99.3, and T-Mobile third, 98.8. You can make the argument AT&T is the most improved. That's what the OpenSignal report shows, that they're the most improved on the availability. Right? They got a massive investment from the government for FirstNet. That's been an ongoing reimbursement, and it has allowed AT&T to expand into areas that otherwise might not bring a lot of return on investment. Because they're getting that reimbursement, they have to deploy in areas where Verizon and T-Mobile might not see fit. They might say, hey, I'm not going to deploy there. There's nothing for me to make a return on an investment. AT&T is getting reimbursements from the government so they can deploy there because they didn't pay for it. So, again, for some of you, OpenSignal's fine. For some of you, OpenSignal doesn't hold a lot of weight. And yes, we will look at all the other reportings as well. We will look at root metrics. We saw in the last couple of halves how AT&T has performed on root metrics. They've outright won the state testing in like the last 2 or 3 reports. So looking at OpenSignal, taking what we saw from the recent ones, I know the last one Verizon won, so Verizon stepping up their game. But if you combine the root metrics testing and what we've seen at the state level from AT&T, and if you look at the availability chart from OpenSignal and how much AT&T has improved from 2020, right? They were right there with Sprint, and to where they are now, you'd have to say AT&T has been the most improved carrier on the network. Right? I think it's about time to call it out. I think some have talked about it briefly. And given, right, as crazy as this may sound, given the size of company that AT&T is, right, we shouldn't even have to say that they're the most improved. But you can tell before the FirstNet investment, right, they really weren't that invested on its wireless network. They struggled, right? 2014, 2015, 2016, they struggled, right? For the most part, early on in LTE, they were 2 bands. They were aggregating 2 bands, even though they had more spectrum, but they were so invested in media. They wanted media. They wanted to do all this other stuff. So they weren't really big on wireless. But now you can see how quickly it's changed. You look at OpenSignal, that's evidence, that's one. And then you look at root metrics, the last few halves of testing, and they They won outright the state level testing. And I know, again, a lot of people have mixed feelings about root metrics testing. But if you go by that, then we might as well just disregard all the testing and just throw it in the trash. We have to look at some of the numbers that are out there, right? We look at one, then we look at another one, and then we form an opinion, right? In my opinion, based on the open signal availability and then looking at root metrics, AT&T has to be the most improved network. T-Mobile is up there too, right? If we look at pre-merger and post-merger where the network is today with all the spectrum, but AT&T, the type of scale that they've been able to gain into the network, and a lot of it has to do with churn, right? I was talking to somebody earlier. They told me there's a reason that AT&T has the lowest churn. There has to be a reason. Verizon's churn is elevated. T-Mobile's churn is elevated. If they have all this mid-band, then how does AT&T have the lowest churn, right? And we might have to break that down even more in some future videos. But how does AT&T do it? They have no perks, right? Their pricing is not significantly cheaper, right? They don't do free lines, so they have a attractive price point, but it's not the cheapest, and they don't do free lines, and they don't just do insider discounts and all that other stuff, right? So to me, it has to be part of being the most improved network, right? Having a modernized, scaled network. There's still a lot of band 13 only sites out there from Verizon that AT&T has managed to upgrade via FirstNet. So it's all about performance. And Verizon told us, pretty much giving us the answer, saying, in the markets where we have C-band, we have lower churn. So that tells you there is still a large part of the network that Verizon does not have C-band on, that they struggle, that they have a bit elevated churn. And T-Mobile, they have most of their mid-band deployed, but they still lack that coverage. So even though, as you can see as of January, right, it's closing in, right? 99.5, 99.3, 98.8. But that 98.8 to get to even 99.3, although on the numbers on this chart, it looks close, but in reality, it's a lot bigger. It's a lot bigger of a gap. So once T-Mobile can get to 99, 99.1, 99.2, then they're really getting closer. Then it's like really so close you can't tell a difference. But with this, there is still somewhat of a gap, and we'll see that on root metrics too, right? T-Mobile will improve, but there's still gonna be that gap. And AT&T has managed to be the most improved network. I will say, looking at root metrics, looking at open signal, their availability, it's got to be called out. Most improved network. And I think that modernization piece is going to lead to them being able to deploy this mid-band at a very rapid pace. They don't have to go back to sites, at least in Ericsson markets, they don't have to go back to sites and do like a whole lot, right? They deploy the mid-band panel, and they're pretty much in and out, right? In the Nokia markets, we all know that's a whole different story. That's like a full rip and replace, so that's going to take longer. But once they do that full rip and replace, right, hoping that I would say 85 to 90% of sites are going to get the mid-band in the Nokia markets. But all the sites have to be touched, so they're going to get some form of Ericsson equipment, which most or the majority are saying performs better than Nokia. So let me know your thoughts on AT&T's most improved network, right? Something's got to give. They have the lowest churn. They don't do perks. They don't do huge amounts of value. So there's got to be something that's keeping people on the AT&T network. And I think it's got to be the most improved network. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe if you're new. Follow my social media outlets. This is Tyrone with Tech Life. See y'all in the next one. Peace.